So we are here with Jacob Gaba in our first installment looking at the lives of our student athletes here at Haverford. And we thought, what better way to start off with interviewing student athletes than someone who has literally dealt with the very first thing first years deal with when they come on the campus, and that is customs. And Jacob is a co-head of the customs program. So Jacob, maybe just to start off with, could you give just kind of a brief introduction to yourself, your year, your major, things like that?
Yeah. So I'm Jacob. I'm a junior from Bethesda, Maryland. I run cross country and track and field, run distance, and um, I really was drawn to Haverford partially because my high school running coach actually went here, ran for Tom in the 90s, and was a big influence on me and kind of the ethos of the team. Um, and the school in general, hearing about it from him in high school was really appealing. And that's a big reason why I ended up wanting to come here. And it's been a great experience so far.
Yeah. And so it's kind of been a unique experience. You guys were sent home in March. Just kind of talk about, obviously, you had to come back for the customs program. Maybe when did you come back to campus? And also, just what are your feelings heading into the 2021 academic year?
Yeah, I mean, it was really tough getting sent home. Obviously, it was the right call to end the school year in person when the pandemic hit. But it's a tough blow for our team, for any team. Looking forward to competing all year, and then especially losing the spring. Just didn't really get to say goodbye to a lot of my close friends, teammates. That especially those seniors who we miss a lot. Like, just didn't get to say bye to them, and that was harder than I thought it would be. And so that was that social aspect of the team was really tough back in March and moving forward in the pandemic. But we all kept running and training kind of along the similar line that we would have if we were competing. We did time trials at home on our own. And we kept in touch with each other, through our running logs and through other, means of communication, keep each other accountable for our training, and just, you know, keep each other motivated. And that came from Tom and the other coaches as well. Just keep everyone motivated because, even when the going got pretty tough, back in March, April, May, we all tried to keep doing what we love, which is running. And we still, by keeping in touch the way we did, and keeping each other motivated to keep training, it was the best we could do, and it's not the same, but I'm really glad I had the guys even virtually, just to virtually train with and keep in touch with that way when all of that happened. And I've been back here on campus since mid-August. Arrived back early to a very different campus than the one I left back in March, but it's really great to be back. And you know, despite not having a season this fall, just being able to run on the nature trail and like run through campus and run with teammates is a really surreal feeling after everything. And I'm really grateful to be able to be back here.
Good, good. So you talked a little bit about your athletics. We'll touch on that more later, but one of the reasons we were interested in talking to you is you were a co-head of customs. And before we dive deep into what exactly went into that, maybe if you could just give a little more explanation of what is customs for those people who maybe don't know.
Yeah, so Customs is Haverford's first year orientation program. So all the first year students go through Customs. They arrive here a week before classes start, and they have a few upperclassmen who will live on the hall with them that serve different roles in terms of helping them adjust to college and adjust to Haverford in particular. Um, And we also have one person who lives off the hall, whose job it is to facilitate different discussions for first year halls in order for them to kind of get to know each other better and kind of get in touch with some of the values that we have at Haverford, and kind of discuss why we believe different things, and kind of show and embrace the diversity of background from which first years are coming from, because they come from so many different places, and they come from different upbringings, and having them all together on one hall with the upperclassmen that are helping them, the customs people, the upper class advisors, community facilitators, really helps them adjust to the community and get to know others and make friends at the same time.
Okay. And then how did you get involved with customs? Obviously, you went through it as a first year, but what made you really inspired to become involved with customs throughout your college experience?
Yeah, so I obviously went through it as a first year, and then I was a customs person my sophomore year. Um, so I lived on the hall with first years. I think there were 17 of them, and um, it was an interesting experience. Sometimes difficult, but very rewarding. And as the program shifted to a smaller customs team, so fewer people living on the hall, fewer people, um, with the first years on their hall. I decided it would be a good time for me to step into a leadership position and try to help navigate that change in the program. And then, obviously, when the pandemic hit, we had an even more unprecedented change to deal with. As we moved forward with customs, and I can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we basically just had to deal with the fact that we're gonna have first years who are gonna be remote, and how to include them in the program. And we have the program historically has been based in a lot of in-person activities where you're physically exploring the campus, or having discussions in a room with your hall, and there's a lot of you're meeting new people and you're connecting with them for the first time, and so there's something really personal about the program. And so we just really had to try to make sure that we were um, capturing that aspect of it as we switched to doing much more virtual stuff. But also, we really focused on providing more outdoor spaces, outdoor games for people to do. So there could be that in-person social connection that is so fundamental in customs. So we really utilized Founders Green a lot, had games out for first years. A lot of people were eating their meals out there. So I think, there are bumps in the road, but it went as smoothly as it could, under the circumstance.
Yeah, that's really good. So I guess ultimately, how did you get selected to become a co-head of customs, and what were some of your major responsibilities in leading up to this week of orientation?
Yeah, so I think really what happened was Katrina Glanzer, the first year dean, reached out to me and encouraged me to apply. And I was a little unsure at first. I wasn't sure if this was a responsibility I would, be willing to take on at this time. And I sat down with her and talked through my concerns. And I didn't want to apply if I wasn't ready to do it. And I decided I was, and I applied and got accepted. And even though I applied as an individual, the admin team decided to pair me with Leah, who was the other co-head, who I didn't really know beforehand, but we ended up working really, really well together. And she and I really got along well when going forward with all the different challenges we had. So I was really thankful to have her alongside me as we did this. It's definitely not a position that one person can do. So there was a lot of really important teamwork going on there.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about the planning that went into customs. You mentioned you were back since mid-August, but I'm sure you were planning well in advance of that because you mentioned the time commitment. Just kind of talk about when you started planning customs and what all went into that.
Yeah, so I think I accepted the position in February, and we basically hit the ground running from there. Started to interview, and we ended up doing all the interviews virtually. But interviewing, probably I sat in on dozens of interviews to, pick the people who are going to be on the ground with the first years, the CPs, UCAs, CCFs, and I spent that's really the biggest time chunk was just talking thoroughly with all those people to make sure that we pick the best people to be in those positions, because it's really important responsibility. They're like I said, the people on the ground with the first years. In my position, I don't get to interact with first years very often. I really have to make sure that the people who are doing that are responsible, they're good leaders, they're good listeners, and they're good facilitators. So that was a big, major responsibility for me. But I think at the end of the day, Leah and I and the admin team who interviewed all these people did a really good job of picking who we picked, and they've done a fantastic job so far. Through Customs Week, and I know they will beyond.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of all the responsibilities that went in, and you're only a junior, correct? So
Right.
you have another year of this. Is there anything that you're particularly proud of with that the team was able to accomplish during Customs Week, or maybe something that you want to modify for future years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm proud of what we did to adjust to the pandemic and the situation here on campus. And just, I think the most important decision we made, not really a decision, but kind of thought process that we developed was, don't try to make this year like other years. Don't expect it to be like other years. And once we dropped the expectation that it was going to be like other years, we were able to kind of form something entirely new. And even though there are aspects of it that are very similar, and we tried to emulate some things in different ways, we really, knowing that we were going to have to get creative to work around the pandemic and the reality of life on campus now, we really, um, you know, had to just accept, like, this is not going to be a normal year. And once we did that, we got over that hump. I think things I would change, and I'm not necessarily yet committed to doing this again next year. And I think um, that's a whole different conversation. But um, I think just really one thing we need to iron out, which has been an issue with customs, for the last, as long as I can remember being a part of the program for the past 3 years. And I know people before me have said this as well, but just, there are some really difficult discussions that we need to have with first years about different issues, like issues of race, class, gender, and just, issues of belonging. And I think, sometimes those discussions are a little too difficult, but they're also necessary, they're important. And I think we need to just really iron out making sure that people, on one hand, feel comfortable when they enter those discussions, but also, are prepared for a conversation that will ultimately be pretty difficult. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you unpacked a lot of important issues right there, and I don't want to put them to the side because it's something you're obviously very conscious of, and sounds like your team has put a lot of thought into them. But also, another part of why you're on this interview right now is obviously you're a member of the cross country team. You mentioned kind of, um, obviously, this is a huge extracurricular to take on.
Right.
Maybe talk about some other things you're involved with being on campus. And then also, for those who don't know, you're a member of the nationally renowned cross country team. You've been to nationals, I believe it's 27 years in a row now, have been, not you personally, but the team has won a national championship. So kind of, how do you balance being a student leader on campus with also being a student athlete?
Yeah, well, honestly, I think just everything blends really well together here. And I really try not to cordon off, customs into one box and running into another box and academics into another box. And they're all part of my experience here. And, at the end of the day, my academics, my classes come first. I'm here to get a degree. I'm here to be a student. But obviously my experience here would be profoundly different without running and without customs. And so just an example of how these things kind of flow together and aren't separate for me, which kind of allows me to take them on all at once. It's like during customs week, I was running with all of the first years on the team. And so, I was talking to them about customs, and I was also talking to them about, being a part of the team. And those things were all kind of happening at once. And that happened when I was a first year in customs. We had, there are always older guys on the team that are a part of customs, and they run with the first years during customs week. And so there's this blend of running and customs going on. And so that to me is like exemplifies how like, if you approach all these different things you do on campus as kind of just, all a part of your experience, and not just, oh, now is the time where I work on this, and now is the time where I work on that. I'm always on as the customs co-head, and my life is also really structured around running. And so I really try to integrate those things together, integrate everything I do here academically, athletically, or with regard to customs. I really try to integrate it all together in order to just, I don't know, always be, organized and in the right mindset to deal with what I might have to deal with in any given situation. And I do other things as well on campus that I juggle with these things. But I just like I said, just being, in a routine, as Tom always tells us, the best way to live at college is just to have an established routine, be in a routine. And I know that if I take on that routine and stay in routine, I can balance all of these things together. And it's not really that difficult at the end of the day.
Yeah. So I think you touched on a lot of things, and maybe just to wrap up our interview, you alluded to it in the interview. There's no competitive sports for the fall. There's some practices that'll be allowed. I think you mentioned also the social aspect of your team, and I think a big part of your team success is you guys, I think as your coach described it, you're competitive for each other. You're not competitive against one another.
Right.
So maybe talk about what are your expectations for the fall? Obviously, you get to practice as a team, but you guys are a team that's always in the mix for the conference championship and well beyond. But you also have 3 seasons. So maybe what are your expectations for the fall, and maybe any goals you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, our goal is to always just be as good as we possibly can be. And, as you mentioned, for the previous however many years, that's meant winning the conference and trying to podium at nationals, being a top, in the top 2 or 3 at regionals, but in years where that's not the case, we still just want to be the best that we can be. And, yeah, Tom's absolutely right that like you know, we really feed off each other, and we keep each other accountable, not just with running, but with school and everything else. And that really helps us like build up a healthy team spirit to try to push each other to be our best. Because we know that when as individuals we're at our best, the team is at its best. And that means every single guy is giving his all, is putting the work in over the summer, is putting the work in the fall, is staying balanced, between their classes and running. It's living a balanced lifestyle, it's getting their sleep, eating well. Um, you know, my first year here, we had 3 All-Americans on the team, and Tom treated them the exact same way he treated the 3 slowest guys on the team, and that really contributes to that atmosphere of just everyone's holding each other accountable. Everyone is going to try to bring out the best in everyone else, and therefore, ultimately bring out the best in the team. And I think just in terms of goals for the year, like I said, just be the best we can. And we don't even know that we're going to be competing against anyone. So we're just going to keep running and listening to what Tom wants us to do, and just stay ready for when it does come. As soon as they let us race, other teams, we're going to be ready. And I'd wager that not everyone in the conference is going to be ready. It's been a long time since we've all raced. I think it's really easy to kind of lose focus, and especially in running, focus is super important. But I know that our guys, I've seen it, already being back on campus with our guys that are here, and the others that are off campus. We've stayed focused this whole time, and we're going to be ready. When the time comes, we'll be ready.
Yeah, for sure. I have no doubts, knowing how much time and effort you put into your sport, and really, as you mentioned, your entire Haverford academic experience. I have no doubts you will be ready when the time comes. And it's always good to end on a high note. So, Jacob, I just want to thank you for your time today and wish you best of luck with everything the upcoming semester will have to hold for all of us.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.